The Pittsburgh Steelers did it the hard way.
Steelers show blitz. He throws the pass. It's going to be picked off. James Harrison has it. He's running up the sideline. 35-40. Still on his feet at the 45 and down. No, he's still on his feet. Here comes Harrison jumping over people to the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5, and that's a touchdown.
All right, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to this return edition here of the Mess Steel Podcast. It has been a while since the recap of this year's NFL draft. Here, of course, me, Charles Prodigy, Richey, and be joined once again with a very familiar friend and guest of the show. Him many years before. He is the legendary voice. I'm sure you recognize him, especially in the city of Pittsburgh. I'm talking about none other than Bill Hillgrove. He is not only the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers for a record-setting going into his 30th season this year, as well as the Pittsburgh Panthers, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, since 1970. So this will be your 54th season with the Pitt Panthers football team.
Coming up on 50 for the Pitt football team, because Ed Conway was the play-by-play man in 1970. So I was his assistant for 5 years, and then I took over when Ed unfortunately passed away.
Yeah. Hey, so real quickly, let's go ahead and start this off right now. And thanks again for joining me. Real quickly, I just want to know, just curiosity, because I've always said right now, because the Steelers right now, every team has been doing like their own little Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor. Steelers has been a uniquely different style versus other teams, where they've been doing like their own Hall of Fame. And I must say right now, because you already got so far to my record and seeing in the Steelers franchise, Myron Cope is so far the only announcer. I want to say right now, I think both either you or even right now, if you'd be the guest of honor on this show, Bill Hillgrove, Steeler Nation Art Room, if you guys are watching, or the late Jack Fleming, who passed away in 2001. I think you guys deserve a chance of in the Hall of Honor well before the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But can you tell me how that transition was when it came time in 1994? Because I also understood you also did some college football games too for different teams. It was different teams technically. Can you speak on any late memories of Jack Fleming and just kind of reminder for any fans who are not familiar with him or who have grew up with him, how that take place? Because you were a news anchor for a long time with KDKA before you even got the job and broadcasting with Myron Cope and then Tunch Ilkin, both who have passed away in recent years.
Yeah, Jack Fleming was the best local guy that I've ever heard do play-by-play. I thought of him as a god. This is before I even did my regular sports thing. I was a disc jockey for a lot of years, but I had met him way back when I was a disc jockey, and it was not because of sports, it was because of another matter. And I'm in the presence of God. He was as good as it got. And when he retired in 1994 and the Steelers came calling, I was afraid that my shoes weren't big enough to fill his. And it worked out okay. But, Jack was one of the best that ever existed. And as a result, to be mentioned in the same breath as Jack Fleming is indeed an honor.
And with that being said right now, can you talk in contrast to, like I said, you've had experience for the most part. This will be year number 3 for Craig Wolfley. In case anyone is wondering, just to recap, about 2 years ago on Labor Day weekend, former offensive lineman Tunch Ilkin passed away the Saturday of that weekend, battling with Lou Gehrig's disease. And I'm not gonna lie, I saw Tunch probably like the last 2 years before that. Something looked a little off, but even still, Myron Cope broadcasted for 11 seasons, and then Tunch Ilkin is a tandem who actually began in '98, but you and him together with Wolfley eventually joining as a silent reporter for about 16 seasons. Can you tell us the difference in like each of their styles working with both Myron and of course Tunch? What was like what one of the most intriguing things about each of them as you
Here's
had
what's interesting about that whole scenario. Cope was unique. Cope was not analysis as much as color. Cope gave it color. Cope gave it humor. Cope gave it a bizarre twist. And when he passed, I remember having a little gathering with Tunch Ilkin at training camp, and I said to him, I said, you're ready to succeed a legend. And he said, I know that. He said, but I have to be myself, and I have to do it my way. I can't be Myron again, which nobody could. And he was very bright and smart in doing it that way. But what I like about what has happened in this whole process, and I've been lucky to be part of it for 30 years, is, the Rooney way is to be seamless, to do it the Rooney way, to just, go forward and be yourself. And it's happened that way. And the same with the transition between Tunch and Wolfley. They were roommates. They thought alike. And so that's been seamless as well. And they were both offensive linemen, and that doesn't hurt. But, and now Max Starks joins us on the sideline, and he's an offensive lineman and a former Steeler. But, it works if you let it happen. Let the chemistry happen.
No doubt about it, and that's just one of the interesting things. A lot more you're seeing in today's league, as well as other sports, though. Too, you look at athletes now in today's generation, pretty much building their own brands more so than ever. Where it's like doing their own podcast, their own coverage. But speaking in which, right now, too, right now, out of all the years you've been there, having to deal with it one face to face traveling. What would you say as far as like playoff wise? What was the most intense and craziest playoff game you ever had to call? And like, what would you say was the most heartbreaking and disappointing year? I got a few choices for you for the playoffs, but I'd like to hear what you got to say on that one first, please.
Well, I think the most intense was that game against Cincinnati in Cincinnati when Vontez Burfict went crazy and Joey Porter helped him to do that.
Yep.
And and I really think that was, at the top of the list on the positive side. They said Kimo von Oelhoffen rolled into Carson Palmer. Well, he was pushed into Carson Palmer. And if you look at any video, that's what happened. And it was properly called and adjudicated. That was a high. The low, I guess, and there were a couple of them back in the Bill Cowher years where the Steelers were 10-point favorite plus against teams like San Diego and didn't get the job done. But I tend to eradicate the bad memories and concentrate on the good ones. And thank God, in 30 years with 4 Super Bowls, I've had some good moments.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I would also add in there too, right now, if you're talking about like disappointing seasons to add, I think another one too will be the 1998 season right there. And of course, everyone remembers that with botched coin toss called by Jerome Bettis right there. I believe the Steelers at that point they were 7-3, and I think they went on a 6-game losing streak. Bill Cowher, I believe, tied the late Paul Brown for starting off their careers for consecutive playoff seasons. And not only was it a 6-game losing streak that cost them their first ever playoffs, but it was 3 straight seasons in a row right there where they missed the playoffs. And I thought that was right there, had like so much promise right there, and things just went south in the heartbeat.
I forget about those moments. I worry about the positive. Don't dwell on the negative. It's going to happen. Uh, I look forward. I look forward with a smile on my face, and I think that's the Rooney way as well.
I
Just keep plugging away, and good things happen.
And speaking of the Rooney way too, one thing too that has definitely been debated on too and highly revered. You look at Mike Tomlin. I mean, right now, you look at like technicality wise, as far as like the Steelers all time coaches right there. They had three in over 5 decades so far to know. Of course, Chuck Noll being at the cream of the top basically with 4 Super Bowls right there, and has 199 193 victories, 24 and 60-8 playoff record. And of course, you got Mike Tomlin, who's past Hall of Famer Bill Cowher. He is 16th on the all-time coaches list and wins, second in Steelers team history. And speaking of which, when it comes to Mike Tomlin, if he happens to win another Super Bowl or two, and let's say it doesn't necessarily have to be 4 Super Bowls or more to pass Chuck Noll. Do you think an argument can be made for Mike Tomlin if he continues on the path of that? He not only passes Chuck Noll in regular and career wins, but also still hasn't had a losing season. But he'll also get to say one thing that Chuck Noll has never said, if it does come to fruition, was win Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks. To that, you say agree or disagree on that?
Mike Tomlin, I think, like his predecessors, is a Hall of Famer. He's consistent, but he exists in a time when to win 4 Super Bowls is virtually impossible. There is so much parity in the league and so much built-in uh, last to first probability. Uh, you know, it's a different era, a different game, but he still, to me, is going to probably get a gold coat put on his shoulders like he was able to put one on Barber's shoulders this past weekend. Uh, he's bright. Uh, I see him, close up on the sidelines. Uh, I know how he coaches, and he doesn't miss a thing. And okay, you can criticize his record about playoffs, but it is so much tougher to be a dynasty in this day and age that for anybody to expect it is to be unreal.
What else would you say to like add to Tomlin's legacy once his day comes and gets enshrined to the Hall of Fame? Of course, obviously, it's going to be point right away if this continues. A coach who's never had a losing season, but would you also say it's also more so about the culture that he's helped build? Because if you think about it too, like his predecessor, Tony Dungy, right there, he'll be one of a select elite few as Black African American coaches to be mentioned closing in on the top 10 of all-time wins, competitor, but also building a family type culture. What else would you add to that legacy when that time comes for him?
He doesn't see black and white. Mike Tomlin is bright enough to see that if you're going to succeed in any business, you have to overlook racial parameters. You have to overlook expectations. You have to overlook what people think of you. And one of the things I love about him is he tells his players, don't listen to the noise. And I tell you, he sells it better than anybody. Uh, in this day and age, with everything at your fingertips, those players can, do the social media and find whatever they think is a buzz. Uh, he tells them, don't do it because you can't control that. The only thing you can control is your performance on the field. And he keeps that nose to the grindstone. And I see that every day and every week and every month.
No doubt about it. And do you think right now too for the Steelers keeping Mike Tomlin as long as they do uh, right now, it's just more so the chemistry, or do you think it's possible too? You say shut out the noise, but do you think it's also too like the image they don't want to have perceived is like if they were to part ways, not necessarily fire him, but if you were to walk out, do you think it's possible it'll cause like a bad reaction in the eyes of the fans, media? Like, what the heck? This guy has not lost you a season. Look what he's built up, and the success ratio, like I just discussed a moment ago. Do you think it's just they don't want to go into something that could potentially be franchise altering?
I don't want to go there. Uh, and I don't think the Rooneys will let it go there. RD2 is like his dad, Dan. And Dan once said, our philosophy is to hire an assistant coach who's bright and very capable with no baggage. And he did that with Chuck Noll. He did that with Bill Cowher. He did it with Mike Tomlin. It's a very consistent philosophy. No baggage, no previous errors, no previous problems, no previous, unrealized expectations. And that's what has maintained their success. Let's take last year. Excuse me. A lot of coaches would have lost that team, the Steeler team, with a new quarterback coming in and, throwing 7 interceptions and no touchdowns and the team losing. And a lot of coaches would have lost that team. Mike Tomlin made sure it didn't happen. And the way they finished, I think, just indicates that there's a bright future for this franchise and a bright future certainly for this year.
No doubt about it. And speaking of which, for year number 2 for Kenny Pickett right now, what do you expect to see for him as far as like the next steps right now, as far as league team and as far as his development? Is it more so keeping the touchdown interception ratio, probably like the 10 or less? I mean, like interceptions, take care of the ball. I mean, last year he was definitely doing it for the end of the season for doing something that hasn't been done in a while for rookie quarterbacks, which is not only 3 fourth quarter comebacks, but 4 game-winning drives. Seeing him from the University of Pitt to the transition to the pro, great story, by the way. What do you feel like is the next step in building block for this young man under center with your
I
black?
think Matt Canada will take the gloves off. They were on last year, even late in the season, and Kenny lived with those gloves. Uh, and I think I see this team throwing the ball down the field more. I think I see more slants. But more importantly, and I go back with Kenny Pickett when he was a freshman at Pitt. And I said to myself, there are a lot of quarterbacks that have had greater technical skills, could throw the ball harder, could throw it probably quicker and more accurately. But Kenny Pickett is one of those people, and you have to find that person. He knows how to win. And I can't describe it any better. And I think that will augur well for him, this team, and this franchise.
Definitely. Now, going on right now, speaking of which, the AFC North right now is going to definitely be vastly competitive right now this year. It's been a long time since the Steelers ever found themselves towards the bottom of the division. You'd have to go back as far as like 35 years ago. That was 1988. You got a very mixed house in there right now for this team with, of course, obviously the Cincinnati Bengals, who are about 2 years removed from being in Super Bowl 56. And then, of course, you also got the Ravens right now. Lamar Jackson's finally got his fully guaranteed deal. And you got Odell Beckham Jr. right there, who could be a key factor with that Ravens team and their offense. Then, of course, you look at the Browns once again. I know a lot of people are looking at them, holding their breath to see, is this going to be the same old Browns, or will they finally do something with Deshaun Watson? It seems like the noise of his accusations with his legal issues slowly quieting down, but you're starting to see them hopefully become a formidable football team. Where do you think the Steelers will finish out looking at this schedule? They'll be facing 5 playoff teams. Given health-wise, where do you anticipate them to end up? No worse than 3rd, or where's your input on that?
They will not finish last in that division. And it would not surprise me that they wouldn't challenge for the top. the way to beat the Bengals, I think, is what this team has the capability of, is to control the line of scrimmage, run the ball, keep Joe Burrow off the field. And, I think their defense is that much improved that Lord knows the offense is good. They've given Kenny Pickett the weapons. Where do you see George Pickens? He'll put on a show for people, and he'll embarrass a few cornerbacks. Pat Freiermuth, yards after contact last year, among the best in the league, especially for tight ends. Their line is better. It is improved. Seumalo has really anchored that line, being the left guard, and I don't know who's going to play left tackle. Dan Moore right now is listed as the starter. Broderick Jones, this guy has a little Bill Fralick in him. He doesn't want to block you. He wants to embarrass you and hurt you. And so I think that line has the ability to sustain this offense into something way better than people expect.
And also too, you look at like this year from this year's draft class right now. We mentioned about though too. You got Broderick Jones right now. He is the first tackle selected in 27 years. But you also had to go back to as far as like 31 years ago when they last had their last Pro Bowl tackler selected in the draft, and that was back in the 1992 season. That was Leon Searcy of Miami.
Right.
Went to have a career with the Jaguars. How excited are you for this guy right now? I mean, the Steelers had some pretty good draft picks, more particular with guard and center under the previous regime, under Kevin Colbert. How much of a huge impact you could see right now? He's currently on the depth chart behind Dan Moore. Do you think when it's done and done by the end of the preseason, he graduates up to the start for the regular season debut? Or do you see a
I'm,
similar path last year, like with Kenny Pickett, give it a few games, and he builds his way up from there? He beat out Dan Moore.
Charles, I don't think it'll be that quick. That's a very delicate position to come in as a rookie and start. Let's face it, there's so many things going on. You have to protect your quarterback, his blind side. There's a lot that he has to learn, but he has the indomitable spirit to overcome a lot of things. And it just, don't ask me to predict things, but I think early in the regular season he will gradually jump ahead of Dan Moore, and Dan has gotten better. And so I go back to Mike Tomlin. Competition is healthy, and that's been a very competitive position that the Steelers probably will benefit from the competition.
Also, too, right now, you also got Art Rooney right now, who is running the team since his father passed away, Dan Rooney. You see him from generation to generation. No secret why they have three coaches, and over the last 5 decades, right there, winning combined 6 Super Bowls. How important right now? You see the moves that have been made under first year Omar Khan. Many will look at this team and say, you know what, this is a great team that looks on paper. Again, given health wise and how the ball could bounce their way or not. But do you think it's a message right now where Art Rooney's getting up there in age? He wants to, follow his father and grandfather's legacy to win a Super Bowl on his own merit right now. Oh, how do you feel about that? Do you think it's important he gets one on his own versus when he was a president? How much this mean for legacy one to get like a Super Bowl two?
I don't think that he thinks in those terms. Personally, he thinks the Rooney way. Let's gear this team up to win a Super Bowl. And if you want to look down the line as far as the Rooney family is concerned, his son Danny, who played at Dartmouth, I think quietly is being groomed to take his place at some point. And for Steelers fans, that's good news, because that means the Rooney family wants to keep this thing going. I don't think he looks at it personally to himself and say, I have to win a Super Bowl. It's we. And I think I like we. And I really think that's been the mantra that has kept this franchise probably among the tops in pro sports.
And lastly, before we get out of here, Bill, and thanks again for joining. I remember when we last had you on 4 years ago, we're recapping the 2019 season when the Steelers officially part ways and cut ties with the Killer Bees, and of course, Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. I remember you shared the story of the late Buddy Ryan, who traded a player away for a six-pack, named come back cold. This year, look at the landscape of the NFL right now. You look at running backs right now trying to get their money in order right now. A lot of players are starting to get frustrated with that. Do you think this is heading in a disastrous situation for the league right now with the running backs having to call their own meetings? I know they deserve to get paid, but then there's been an argument pay for play. You got Najee Harris, first round pick, still pick up the fifth year option. What's your concerns on that, on the landscape of this game, yet alone for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Running backs, to me, are looking at quarterback money and saying, we want more. Okay, that's fine. But you have to admit, even if you're a running back, that the quarterback position is the most important position on the offensive side. But in their defense, they're the guys that get hit or hitting every play. And so, their life expectancy is much less than that of a quarterback. I give you Tom Brady and I give you Jim Brown. Jim Brown, the greatest running back in the history of the game, after 9 years said, I'm out of here. And so did Barry Sanders. So did Barry Foster, the Steelers' great running back. 9 years seems to be their max, and they want to make their money. But I don't get into salaries, but I'll say this again: the quarterback is the most important player on the offense, and how far the trickle down is from there, it's up to other people to determine.
And lastly, Bill, I promise on this one, which game do you look forward to seeing this year out of the regular schedule? We got definitely a handful coming up right here. The Steelers will finish their season finale in Baltimore for the first time in 4 years. Or no, actually, I take that back. It'll be in 2 years to going, and that's still be determined at this point. That could still be flexed. But which games are the ones you'd be covering home or on the road that you look forward to most this year? Which one catches your eye on the calendar here?
I think the road game that catches my eye the most is the Raiders. I think the home game, Green Bay. It's going to be interesting to see where that franchise is in relationship as to where they've been and where they want to go. I think those are the most intriguing games.
Nice. All right, Bill. Well, I just want to say thank you once again for joining us here, and
You're welcome.
congratulations on a great career, and hopefully keep it going for as much as you want to keep at it. I just wanted to say once again, fans, if you guys ever want to follow and listen to this man and these gentlemen right here, for the people in Pittsburgh, you can catch them on their stations, WDVE FM 102.5, and their sister station, WBGG AM 970. Or if you're not from Pittsburgh too, make sure get an opportunity. You can subscribe monthly or annually to NFL Plus, and you can also listen to the radio play-by-play coverage right there. Year number 3. Congratulations once again to Craig Wolfley, and prayers and condolences to, once again, still can't believe I'm saying this, but year number 3 without Tunch Ilkin. Just keep up the great work, and always a pleasure following you, sir.
Miss them every day.
Likewise. All right, Bill. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your summer, and we'll look forward to hearing you and following this team throughout the season. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you. And that's going to wrap it up right here. I'm going to just share a few thoughts right now. The Steelers right now, we're looking at them throughout training camp as we look at 7-on-7 drills right now. Looks like it is in favor of the defense, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say it's 4-7 right now. Mitch Trubisky has been heating up quite lately, the last 2 drills right here as we look at it. But right now, if you're keeping track right now, you got Mitch Trubisky. He's completed 44% of his passes, going 15 to 34, 7-shot drills. Then you also got right now Mitch Trubisky completing 57% of his passes. And of course, going to be the backup this season But I still think it's interesting right now, too. You look at this quarterback depth chart on the offense right now. You got Mason Rudolph. You got Tanner Moose on here. I think it's going to be very interesting for this team going in here. But I will say this right now, it's definitely going to be an interesting finish how this team goes forward. And that's going to wrap it up here for the Men of Steel podcast. I want to say thanks again to our guest, Bill Hillgrove, and of course, Charles Prodigy Richey. You can now follow me. Like I said, I can't believe I'm saying this for the third straight week in a row on X.com, not Twitter. It's X.com at Men of Steel CGR, Instagram at Men of Steel Nation. As always, leave it. Don't be trolling, be rolling. We gone.
You know, this has been our story all year, hasn't it been? 60 minutes. It's never going to be pretty. Throw style points out the window, but these guys will fight to the end. And I take my hat off to you, and I congratulate every last one of you.
Thank you for watching the Men of Steel podcast with your host, Charles Prodigy Richey, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Men of Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.